Bet the Board.
What do you mean you don't bet? I mean, I don't bet. You know, I don't gamble. I don't. I never have, and I never will. Yeah, right. I'll bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day.
You owe me 15 grand, pal.
Pay him. Pay that man his money.
It's the Bet the Board podcast.
God likes me. He really, really likes me.
In the end, I wound up right back where I started. I could still pick winners, and I could still make money for all kinds of people back home. And why mess up a good thing?
Here's Payne insider and Todd Fuhrman.
All right, it is that time we've finally been waiting for all summer long. We finally have game week as far as college football goes. And although it is an abbreviated schedule as far as week 0 goes with only 7 games, we do get the college football 2023 season kicked off in style from Dublin, Ireland, where Navy plays Notre Dame, 2:30 p.m. Eastern start time on NBC. I'll play the role of Todd here as far as giving you an overview of the game. Notre Dame currently a 20.5-point favorite. Your total sits at 50.5. So far, we've seen a little bit of money on the Navy side. They were a 21.5-point underdog earlier in the summer. The total seen a little bit of action as far as the over goes. Total opened at 49.5, again up to 50.5. This is the third time the Irish and midshipmen have faced each other in Ireland. Notre Dame won 54-27 all the way back in 1996. Yes, I did watch that game as a kid. And he also won the season opener 50-10 back in 2012. Notre Dame has won 10 of the last 11 meetings, but Navy, as far as we're concerned here, has covered 6 of the last 9 matchups. It has been a higher scoring series between the two. Last 12 meetings have averaged a total of 62 total points per game, going over this line total 10 out of the 12 times. The 2 times it didn't go over this total, Navy had a backup quarterback starting for them a couple years ago, and then also back in 2017, the game was played in heavy rain. And speaking of rain, it's in the forecast for Saturday. 70% chance of showers. Looks like the shower chances are greater in the afternoon. Keep in mind, this game will be a night game as far as across the pond there in Dublin, Ireland. Let's start off with any handicap with my power ratings. Power ratings actually favor Notre Dame here by about 23.5 points. So I should be running the window to bet Notre Dame, right? Wrong. And here's why. Obviously, you got some suppressed scoring as far as week 0 goes. Also, we have the new rules as far as college football goes and how that'll impact scoring. I'm guessing it's anywhere between 2.5 and 3 points. So when you suppress that power rating down for a below average total, we're getting right in line with what the number should be here. As far as the season goes, I have been a little bit pessimistic on Notre Dame as far as the win total. Under 9. Navy, I've been a little bit more optimistic. I bet over their win total. Was available at 5.5 at a few books earlier this summer. Let's talk about the returning experience for both teams. Notre Dame lightly experienced. The only 11 returning starters for the Irish. Navy, meanwhile, 16. And maybe that doesn't sound like much. It is a lot for a service academy. In fact, that's the most returning starters for Navy in 30-plus years with 16 returning starters. Head coach is obviously Marcus Freeman, second year for him. He will have a new offensive coordinator that doesn't have much experience in Jared Parker. Brian Newberry, speaking of not having much experience, this will be his very first game as a head coach, replacing Ken Niumatalolo after 15 years. Newberry, obviously familiar with the Naval Academy, being the defensive coordinator at Navy the last 4 years, and was the defensive coordinator at Kennesaw State prior to that. Let's talk matchups. So let's talk how these two teams line up and match up with one another. I'll start on the Notre Dame offensive side against the Navy defense. Obviously, the big storyline this offseason for Notre Dame's offense would be the addition of Sam Hartman, coming over from Wake Forest. Quarterback Hartman, 45 starts to his name, nearly 13,000 passing yards, 110 passing touchdowns, but has been prone, especially in a few games each and every season, been interception prone, 41 career interceptions. This is a guy that will go down when his career is over as one of the most prolific passers in the history of college football. As far as the offseason reports go and how Hartman has integrated with the Notre Dame roster, he's lived up to expectations, even in some instances exceeded them, both on and off the field. He was recently named a captain. The learning curve was there, though. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows to start off. I mean, obviously he's coming from a mesh-style offense that he had been in the previous 5 years, and he's moving to a more pro-style offense. And he struggled early, especially in spring, but light bulbs seemed to come on in the spring game, even though it was played in poor weather conditions, looked extremely competent enough where, I'm always chicken little sky is falling when it comes to Notre Dame football, but he looked competent enough that I went ahead and made a little bit of a small wager as far as him winning the Heisman. That's how good Sam Hartman looked. As far as, personnel-wise for Notre Dame, running back room has been the deepest on the team and really impressed so far in fall camp. Audric Estime returns. He's a bowling ball, nearly 1,000 yards rushing last year. But we might see 5 different running backs in this game. You have Payne, not Payne Insider, but Jabrain Payne that'll play a little bit. Jadarian Price. You have Ford coming over from Penn State as a transfer. And True Frosh, Jeremiah Love, has also impressed in fall camp. So a very deep running back position for the Irish. At the wide receiver position, that's been the disappointment as far as fall camp. Maybe not a surprise considering Notre Dame's poor wide receiver room and poor recruiting in that position group for the last 3-4 years. I expect Jaden Thomas will be the leader of the group. They need another guy to emerge, including Tobias Merriweather, a big 6'5" kid. One of the kids that has impressed since he got on campus is true freshman Jaden Greathouse, and that goes all the way back to the spring game. I expect him to get a lot of snaps this year. The other big storyline when it comes to Notre Dame's offense is how do they replace Notre Dame's all-time leader at the tight end position, that being Michael Mayer. And keep in mind, Notre Dame's tight end tradition is very steep as far as what's went through that university. Mitchell Evans will be the starter. He was okay, got a jump start to 2023 being the starter in the bowl game, but again, clear downgrade there. Offensive line for Notre Dame. They love their pair of tackles. Joe Alt, Blake Fisher. Could be the best set of offensive tackles in the country. Another surprise in fall camp has been the emergence of their 2 guards. Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler are going to get the start here. And that's a surprise because if you would have said that post-spring, they would have been the second string, both Rocco and Pat there. But they're going to start. I'm not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing as far as Notre Dame's offensive line goes. They will be up against it, though, against this Navy front that gave Notre Dame issues in last year's game. And let's move over to the Navy side of the ball. They do suffer a big loss in John Marshall, who was a major disruptor for them, 11.5 sacks, 19.5 TFLs a year ago. But I still like several players coming back on the defensive side of the ball. The Ramos kid was disruptive. I like their safety Lane. The concern I have matchup-wise here, and it's almost like this, like clockwork every year, the front 4 for Navy. This is the weight average. 256, 256, 292, 227. Those are the weights on the front 4. That's an average of 258. Notre Dame's starting offensive line, 312 pounds, 50-plus pounds of an advantage for Notre Dame's starting offensive line. But that advantage was there last year, and yet Navy was able to stack the line of scrimmage. They dared Notre Dame to beat them over the top. Notre Dame wasn't able to do it in the second half of the game. They held Notre Dame's rush attack to 66 yards. It wasn't just the Notre Dame game. Down the stretch, you look at Navy's rush defense, limited Cincinnati to 55, Central Florida to 84. Considering that, when you look over the course of the season, Navy played a couple option teams and 2 other service academies. The fact that Navy only allowed 89 rushing yards per game last year, 3 yards per carry, that's very impressive. So Navy's rush defense, maybe, not getting enough credit for how good they were a year ago. And again, a lot of their main guys returned this year. And they were also able to get to the quarterback. School record 34 sacks for them. And speaking of sacks, they were able to get to Notre Dame last year. Rewatching that game, 5 sacks in the second half. It was cover 0, all-out blitz after they got down significantly at halftime. And forget scoring points, which Notre Dame had a big goose egg in the second half after putting up 35 in the first half. This was, a Notre Dame offense that couldn't get first downs. Now, can Navy employ that same defense this year? I would say it was so successful in the second half that why wouldn't they at least start the game off with something similar, because Notre Dame couldn't handle that. But I'm here to tell you that could be an issue, because Sam Hartman is a significant upgrade over Drew Pine, and he should be able to hit his hot routes unlike Drew Pine, and shouldn't be holding on to the football too long, unlike Drew Pine last year. So that'll be interesting to see how Navy attacks this Notre Dame offense, specifically after having so much success in the second half of that game last year, to see if they do anything different. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Navy offense against the Notre Dame defense. New offense coordinator for Navy, Grant Chestnut. He had been the offense coordinator at Kennesaw State the last 9 seasons, so there's familiarity there. With Newberry, they were OC-DC at Kennesaw State back in the day. The expectation for Navy, there's some uncertainty here. They're going to throw more spread formations. There are additional cut blocking rules that the NCAA is handing down. There was some last year, and they're basically telling not only Navy but Army and Air Force that they're getting rid of the cut blocking altogether. Therefore, limiting how successful the option offense can be. And I think Navy, particularly Navy, unlike Army and Air Force, needed a change-up. I mean, the Navy offense has struggled the last 3 years. 4.5 yards per play has been the average the last 3 years. 4 years prior to that was 6.2 yards per play. So this was an offense already trending in the wrong direction. They haven't had a game changer at quarterback. I mean, no Malcolm Perry, no Keenan Reynolds. I'm not sure that they have a quarterback this year. Speaking of that, there's some uncertainty there. I expect to see both Blake Horvath and Ty Lavatai at quarterback, co-starters on the preseason depth chart right now. Gleaton was a quarterback that was supposed to be in the mix in the spring, maybe even the favorite to start, but he's run into some academic issues, so uncertainty there. And I think some uncertainty as far as, what is Notre Dame to expect from this Navy offense, particularly if Navy's going to pass more. And, when I look at last year's Notre Dame defense, inconsistency would be the word that I would use under Al Golden. All the same defensive coaches again for Notre Dame this year. It was a defense that, the total numbers look okay, but dead last in the country in red zone touchdown percentage. So once, teams got down in the red zone, it was, forget the field goal unit. It was touchdown on the board. Big reason why Notre Dame allowed their most points per game since 2016. I'll say this from a personnel aspect. So far in camp, Notre Dame's defensive line has been the surprise so far in fall camp. The names you need to know: Riley Mills, Jason Anye up front. They bring in Jean Baptiste from Ohio State. He'll be a guy that starts at defensive end. Jordan Botello at the other spot. But still, guys, this is a big downgrade from Isaiah Foskey, the all-time leader in the sack department as far as Notre Dame. So big loss there. At linebacker, very experienced. The top 3 linebackers are all back: Bertrand, Kaiser, Lufau, all multiple-year starters. I don't think there's an All-American in the bunch. They're solid. They're a group that you can win a bunch of games with. Can you win the national championship with that group? No. I think the more athletic players are behind them at linebacker, including Jalen Sneed. One position that could be elite for Notre Dame is the cornerback position on that defense. Benjamin Morrison, really, at the end of last year, what was, from a production aspect, 6 interceptions as a true freshman. Doesn't get much better than that. Cam Hart, if healthy, is another quality starter. Good size for him. I mean, if you listen to the beat writers that have been watching Notre Dame's fall camp, they think it could be the best pair of starting cornerbacks for Notre Dame in 20 years, or at least on par with their 20 2018 playoff team starters. So that's a strength for Notre Dame at cornerback and also up front. Safety play, if you're looking for a weakness, that is the weakness at safety. There's some experience, not much talent. They went ahead and took a couple transfers. That should, raise the eyebrows. Antonio Carter from Rhode Island, Thomas Harper from Oklahoma State, they're both in the mix, even with DJ Brown and Xavier Watts returning. So I think more uncertainty on that side of the ball. I'm not sure what to expect from Navy's offense. Notre Dame's defense should have a better game plan, but my goodness, I didn't like the game plan last year. I'm rewatching the game. I mean, Fofana at fullback, Navy gashed Notre Dame's defense early on. I would expect Navy's offense to go to the fullback dive a little bit early to see if Notre Dame has corrected that. But that's one that to keep an eye on. I do think Notre Dame's offense will have the advantage on Navy's defense because Navy's just not going to be able to run the same style of defense that they did in the second half last year. Sam Hartman, quite frankly, should burn them often if they're going to run cover zero. As far as me getting involved in the game, I think there's a little bit. I mean, obviously you're going to have to watch the weather forecast. I did get involved on both Navy and the over. I hinted at the top. We see money in both directions there. As long as it's not a monsoon, torrential downpour, I am going to, my preferred position is, the over in this game because not only because of the series history that has trended very high scoring, I think it makes sense. And I'm not a big trends guy or, historical guy at this point in my career, but it does make sense when you consider the fact that it's very tough for Notre Dame to replicate Navy's offense in practice, and vice versa. It's very hard for Navy to replicate Notre Dame's passing attack in practice. So over for me on that one. I know I'm taking up some time here, but this is my baby doll. It's college football. Let me just give you some quick hitters on the other games if you're going to be watching them. Massachusetts, New Mexico State. We've seen several sharp groups come in on Massachusetts, and that line has really went down, as high as 10.5 down to 6.5 through two key numbers. So I do think that's the sharper of the two sides there. Would not bet it at the current number, Massachusetts, New Mexico State. Keep an eye on Massachusetts offense. Needs to be better than what it was a year ago, arguably the worst offense in the country. Don Brown did have that Massachusetts defense much improved a year ago. Expectation is with a bunch of transfers, that'll continue there. FIU Louisiana Tech, haven't seen too much line movement here. Some injuries for Louisiana Tech. Their starting running back is going to be out. FIU was arguably the worst team as far as power ratings in the country, even though they won 4 games a year ago. Not sure, though, I want to be laying 11 in a week 0 conference game. Lean FIU for me. The other big name program in play on week 0, USC, laying a big number against San Jose State. The bigger line movement, though, has been on the over. Now, I understand it because San Jose State was probably one of 4 or 5 teams I circled dead nut over team at the start of my preparation. I think the best piece of actionable info I can give you guys is, unless we see something different, I expect to see the over money come in on a multitude of San Jose State games, at least early in the season. USC a 30-point favorite there. The most competitive game and maybe the most interesting game is Ohio-San Diego State. I mean, if that was a bowl game matchup at the end of the year, you wouldn't be shocked. We have seen a lot of money come in Ohio. Curtis Schwark, their outstanding quarterback, off an ACL injury, is going to play, is going to start. So that's a major reason why the movement there. I will say, now that it's crossed through a key number 3, my power ratings are showing some slight value on San Diego State. You can find as low as 1.5 in the marketplace as I'm recording this. So lean the Aztecs there at the current number. UTEP Jacksonville State's an intriguing one. Jacksonville State new to the FBS. You got Rich Rodriguez as the coach of Jacksonville State. You know the name, got plenty of experience. Although UTEP's been getting the money here, pretty one-sided throughout the course of the summer. Matchup to keep an eye on if you're a degenerate like myself. UTEP's strength on offense, that offensive front, 4 returning starters, average weight 310 pounds against a Jacksonville State defensive front, average man 270 pounds. So can Jacksonville State hold up at the point of attack? I do expect, though, Rich Rod to have a few creative play calls dialed up there. And we've seen some money on the over. And then finally, to wrap it up, Hawaii Vanderbilt. Haven't seen too much movement. There's been some actually disagreement in the marketplace between a couple of sharp betting groups here on this one. I will say this. I mean, this is a little bit of a deep dive in the weeds here. I'm not sure the market's fully grasped how improved Hawaii was at the end of last season. I can make a case the first 5 games under Timmy Chang as a first-year coach last year, Hawaii might have been the worst team in the country. They had a bye. They had a reset. After that, Hawaii covered 7 of their last 8 games by an average of 7 points per game. Everyone used to watch the late night Hawaii game 15, 20 years ago. Now there's a multitude of games on in that late window. And Hawaii is not as exciting as what they were under June Jones and when Timmy Chang was playing quarterback for the Rainbow Warriors. I'm just not sure that, the market grasped the improvements they made. They covered a bunch of games, but didn't win them. They lost 4 games by a touchdown or less. Had they won a few more, maybe they would have grasped that, because I took a pretty strong position here late in the summer on Hawaii over their win total. So I think there's some slight value even on Hawaii in this game, even though I like Clark Lee and Vanderbilt. Give me Hawaii plus a 17.5. That'll be an early lean. If you need an official, though, best bet, for grading purposes, as far as week 0 podcast, Notre Dame Navy over 50.5. Can't wait to talk to the guys in week 1 with a loaded card, including the game of the week, maybe one of the games of the year. Can't wait to talk to Payne when it comes to LSU, Florida State in next week's episode. Take care, guys. Enjoy that week 0, and with a Notre Dame Navy ticket in your pocket, over 50.5. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Bet the Board. You can catch Todd and Payne every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday during football season, breaking down the biggest NFL and college football games. And to make sure you don't miss any free best bets, subscribe to Bet the Board on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.